About 6 months before I retired as pastor, I wanted to continue doing something, a ministry that I thought would still be helpful. And that's the reason I started my podcast of encouraging, inspiring, and transforming.
Welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And I'm Dr. B, your host. And just when I think about success leaving clues, and I think about podcasts that would be interesting, that you'd want to be a part of, that you would want to watch, I think of Mr. James W. Smith. I was able to get onto his podcast about a few weeks ago, and just a phenomenal job of reaching folks that maybe sometimes we don't normally make, but then having a perspective, not only that people want to hear, because it's great if somebody wants to get on your podcast, right? Or somebody wants to watch your reel or your whatever you're putting out on TikTok. The problem is sometimes it's just for entertainment. And I guess that's not a problem. I mean, if you're being entertained, but if it doesn't move the needle, if it doesn't change your life, if it doesn't make your world better, sometimes it makes me just wonder sometimes. I'll watch some of the stupidest, in my opinion. I'm not into cat videos and, animal videos and some of this. So I call them stupid. They're probably not for people who love those animals. But I'm like, how do I get, and maybe James, you can attest this, how do I get my time back? If I watch 15 minutes of something that I got hooked in and they got me going and I'm watching it, and in the end it's just nothing. And I'm like, wow, what could I have done the last 15 minutes of my life that would have been help me to be a better person, help me to move forward, help me to serve others. My prayer every day is, dear Lord, give me the wisdom to do the things you put me on this planet to do in a way that pleases you and serves others. And if I can do that every single day, and I can make sure that that's happening in a way, then I feel like I'm successful. I feel like I'm living in purpose. I feel like I'm moving the needle for the age that I'm at, that I'm trying to, I guess, make a difference. And I think the older we get, we start thinking about legacy. We start thinking about what we can do in our fellow service to mankind. And so today is one of those days where you're going to want to share this with somebody. You're going to want to send it out. You're going to want other people that maybe, whether they're struggling or they just want their life to move forward, they're going to want to hear this. And so James W. Smith, thank you for being on the podcast today. Thank you for taking time out of your day, which I know is important to you, as time is for all of us, and sharing with us who you are. And so I'd love for you to start with your story. Start with, whatever you think is the beginning where we should go to. Sometimes I have people start right, hey, when I was 1 year old. What I find is people start somewhere like in elementary school or something, and then we'll start talking and they go, oh yeah, but this happened to my mom, or this happened as part of my community. So we can bounce back and forth. We will talk about our 5 pillars as we go through it. But we're going to start out with James. Please just share who you are. Thank you for being on today.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Arnold. This is a joy, a privilege, and a real, I would say, excited to just be with you. I enjoyed having you on my podcast. You were awesome, and to have me on your podcast, I feel the same way. So I'm grateful. I was just a little country lawyer. Grew up in a small town of Lewisburg, North Carolina, about 30 miles about 30 miles north of Raleigh, North Carolina on 401. And we lived out in the country. As a matter of fact, I always tell people that the area that we lived out was about 10 miles outside of the little small town of Lewisburg, but we was in a little community that when you enter it, you were leaving it. So that's just how the
One stoplight.
that was, we didn't even have a stoplight. So
There we go.
We didn't even have a stoplight. So that's where it was. So I grew up there and went off to school. My mom left at an early age and went to New York to live, to work, make money. So, but I spent my early childhood, kindergarten, and first grade in New York with my mom. But then she just thought it was best that I come back south and live with my aunts and grandfather. And so we were on the farm. And I graduated from high school there in Lewisburg, went off to college in Durham, North Carolina Central University, entered a combined program uh, at, at North Carolina Central University Law School at the end of my junior year. So I graduated and also graduated, finished 1 year of law school at the same time. So I finished law school in 6 years. Passed the bar, started practicing law, and I started practicing law in 1971. I was at the time the uh, first and only African American lawyer practicing in my hometown of Lewisburg. I was the youngest at the time African American lawyer practicing law in the state of North Carolina. So I got a little big headed. Thought I was somebody. All this kind of stuff. Then I got off into something that I regret, but at the same time, I think it got me where I needed to go. I got off into gambling, and it kind of messed me up until I ended up committing a crime after 10 years of practicing law. Uh, I committed a crime, robbed the bank, and got uh, a 15-year sentence, of which I served 5 years, uh, and was released in 1986. And from there on, I stayed on, was supposed to be on probation for 10 years. I had good behavior and was off probation after 2 years. I then just realized what I had to do. I had to actually pull myself together. I had to get my life in order. One of the things my mom told me, that she had moved back to North Carolina at the time, she said, son, you're out. You can put your head in the sand. You can, lie in the ditch. All folk gonna do is come by and kick more sand on you, rub your head further in the ditch, and but you can get up, and some of these same folks will give you a helping hand. That's kind of what I did. I went to when I came to the halfway house in '86 in Durham. I went to the courthouse. There was a good lawyer friend that I'd known for a long time, very well known in Durham area. He saw me, and I just said to him, I said, "Buddy," we call him Buddy. I said, "Buddy Malone, I need a job." He said, "Come out of the office the next day." I went by the office the next day. He gave me a job. Uh, so I started working next day after I got out. I worked with with him for probably about 6 years. I decided that while I was working with him that I was going to go to seminary, and because I had been called to the ministry after the uh, incident happened, they sent me to the Dorothy Dix Mental Hospital. And while at Dorothy Dix Mental Hospital was when I really began, my faith kicked in. And that's when I really realized, what the Lord was saying to me. So I accepted the call and preached my initial sermon. This is interesting. You wouldn't believe it, but I preached my initial sermon the night just prior to the day that I was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And so when I went in, I served, well. I worked in the education building. I assisted the chaplain. I was perhaps the only individual, I'm told, at the time that got a chance to get furloughs out of the system in Ashland, Kentucky, to go to prison fellowship seminars by myself. As a matter of fact, on one of those occasions, I even went by myself. They trusted me to go by myself and return, and I did. I returned, and of course, I went through the system without any infractions whatsoever. And so when I got out, I was just ready to pull my life back together. No
Mhm.
question about it. I knew what I wanted to do. And so I applied for seminary while working with Buddy Malone at the law office. And the first time I applied, I'll be honest with you, I didn't get accepted. Got a little disappointed,
Mhm.
but I won't hurt because I knew why they didn't accept me. So I said, well, I want them to know that I'm serious. So I applied the next semester and I was accepted. So I entered seminary at Southeastern Theological Seminary, got married in between. I've been married with my present wife now for 34 years. We have two kids, um, and of course, two grands. And uh, I got called to pastor church, pastor the same church, traditional missionary Baptist church here in Durham County, where I live, and I stayed there for 32 years. Nice, good congregation. I had a membership of about membership was about 200, average about 100 on Sunday morning, and of course, in between, I applied to be a continuing education instructor for the North Carolina State Bar. And the story behind that is so very interesting. And I'll share that, and then I'll kind of let you ask questions. Um, I went to visit one of my friends who practiced law down in Henderson, where me and my partner was practicing. And he told me, he said, "What? You have an interesting story, Smitty. Why don't you apply with the bar to be a sponsor of continuing legal education?" He said, "I think the lawyers would love to hear your story." And we had only one other lawyer who had been disbarred who was doing it, and a white gentleman. And he had lost his license for embezzling funds. And so I told my friend, I said, "Well, my crime is violent. I'm not sure if they will approve me to be a sponsor." So he said, "Why don't you try it anyway?" Came back and talked to my wife, and she said, "Well, honey, you don't have your license anyway, so what can you lose?" So I applied. I applied for my to be a sponsor of continuing legal education, and I called over there before I applied and asked them what I need to do. They told me I need to talk with Jim Blackburn. That was his name. I know he wouldn't mind me telling you. Uh, and so he said, "Have you talked with him?" And I said, "No." So they gave me his information. I called, talked with him. Then he gave me few ideas of what I need to do, how to put the program together, and what have you. And I sent all my information into the bar, and they told me they would hear from me within about uh, a week. I think they said actually 10 days. 10 days passed. I didn't hear a thing from them, Anna, and I started wondering. I just knew they were going to deny me. And all I could all I could visualize was them seeing this African American guy, who had been in prison, robbed a bank, and that wasn't a good picture. Okay, so what I did, I told my wife, I said, I'm going over to the North Carolina State Bar. So I got dressed. I put on my my pinstripe suit.
Send them
I
in.
I got my hair cut, got me a good shave. I was looking dapper. I went over to the North Carolina State Bar, walked in, and I asked the person, because I talked to somebody within the continuing education department, and they said, "Well, wait 1 minute, and I'll call somebody down." They did. The young lady came down, and Anna, when she came down, I'm gonna be honest with you, when she first looked at me, I almost knew that I was gonna be okay. And so
Mhm.
she came over to me and she said, uh, Dr. Smith, she said, uh, I promise you, you hear something from us in about 3 days. 3 days, I got my letter saying I was approved as a sponsor for the North Carolina State Bar to teach continuing education all over the state of North Carolina. So here I am, the only African American disbarred lawyer who is sharing ethics, mental health, and substance abuse to lawyers all over the state of North Carolina. I did that work for 11 years. I just stopped doing it when COVID came because I didn't want to continue to travel. And so that's part of my life story. I retired from the pastorate after 32 years at the same church. Uh, Maybe about 6 months before I retired as pastor, I wanted to continue doing something, that ministry that I thought would still be helpful. And that's the reason I started my podcast of encouraging, inspiring, and transforming. And so I said, oh, I didn't know anything about podcasting, but I said, oh, I still want to do something that will be ministry. So I looked up how to start it and all that stuff. And so I've done it. And gee, as a matter of fact, just today I interviewed two people, which is 221 interviews that I've done within the last since retiring from Mount Calvary, and so it's been exciting. I've enjoyed it. The last part of my life I want to share with you is that after retiring in end of 22, I was out for about 7 months, and the pastor of my home church in Lewisburg died abruptly. Preached on that Sunday. On that Monday, he had a heart attack, 6 or 7 years old. The two deacons got together, well, two other deacons got together, and they say, well, Dr. Smith has retired. I wonder if he would come down and serve us for a, a couple of Sundays until we can really find somebody. I told him I would. I went down and served him a couple of Sundays. About I think a month or two after that, we pulled together a pulpit selection committee so they could get somebody. And I'll be very honest with you, I've been there now for 15 months. So that so that's my life. That that's
There's
my
still
life.
thirsty, right?
That's my life. I've been there for 15 months. Enjoying it. My wife says she doesn't even think they're looking for a pastor, so I don't know. But anyway, we're enjoying it. So that's about what I do. My wife and I. She's retired from the public school system, and of course, I'm just kind of enjoying myself. I go down to the church, do my Bible study, and what have you, and that's my life. I've gotten involved with quite a few organizations. I was moderator of our association, vice moderator of our association. I was president of the International Interdenomination Ministerial Alliance of Durham and vicinity here in Durham. Uh, I served as moderator of moderators for the General Baptist State Convention of North Carolina. So, I've been involved, and all of that as a result, as a, since all of my downfall. So it goes to show you what can happen when you don't put your head in the sand and don't allow yourself to stay in the ditch. Things can happen for you, and you'll be amazed. And they told me I would never pastor because obviously you can understand why. And people told me I definitely would ever be able to preach at my home church again. And I've been there for 15 months. So that's my life. So ask me any question you want to. I'm just an open book. I don't mind talking about it all.
Oh, love it, love it. And as you guys who were watching, I told you this was going to be one of those amazing episodes where we find out, because one of the things that continues to happen, and the theme that I've had as we're interviewing 100 Black men this year in 2024, and you are number 98. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I know, so you're hitting that, and but the themes is what do I do when the systems, or what do I do when the things that are against me come against me, and how do I react to it? And if success leaves clues, your life is one of those clues that says it doesn't matter how bad we get, we can still pull ourselves out. We can
Mhm.
still be in purpose. We can still do the things that God put us on this planet to do.
Mhm.
And so, I love the fact now. What I want to kind of talk about identity a little bit, because our identity shapes who we are and where we're going to become and
Mhm.
who we are. And so, uh, when we think of an attorney, or we think of a lawyer, we think of this person who's making all this money and doing all these things, and I don't know if we think of them as being always honest and always
Mhm.
forthright, but we do think of it as a profession that creates a pretty big income.
Mhm.
And then you say, well, I was an attorney and then I robbed the bank. And maybe you can talk about what your identity was like through that process that would get you into that position where life got so desperate that was how you felt you had to get out.
Well, it goes two ways. At first, I thought I had become a compulsive gambler, and that's what kind of led me. I had lost uh, everything. I was a very successful lawyer. Everybody in North Carolina would tell you that I was well known over the state. Uh, and I didn't share this, but I had become vice president to the North Carolina Association of Black Lawyers. Okay, so well known, everybody knew me, and but I was into gambling and lost my first wife 5 years, and took my wife. Now we've been married for 34 years, so that tells you how things can happen. I lost my first wife for 5 years. I lost my properties, my home, all as a result of my gambling. And of course, I just kind of lost it. You know, I first my first thought was I wasn't going to deal with this. I went to the office one Wednesday morning. I never forget it. Uh, 1981, July 30, July. Uh, Trying to think what date it was now, but July the 19th, went to the office and sat there with my 22 caliber pistol was going to actually take my life. And I honestly think I didn't do it because of my mom. You know, I'm the only child to a single mom, and we were very close. And at that time, I was not married. It was just me. We had already separated and divorced. And somehow I didn't do it, and I think it was because of my mom. But I started out going on 85. Uh, I closed the office and just said, shoot. So I just started writing and went on 85, went to a restaurant, was going to sit down and eat. And to be very honest with you, I just looked out of the window and here was the Central Carolina Bank. And I said, oh, boy, if I could just get my hands on it. At that time, I was just saying 50, $100,000, I could pay off all my debts, and I could go back to my office like nothing happened. You know, this crazy thinking, but this is just the way I was thinking. And it went and came, and so I started riding around in Oxford, and then it just hit me. I said, "Shoot, get caught or not." I drove right up to the bank and went in, stick up, give me your money. And they did. And of course, quite a few things happened in between. Uh, but I was arrested and placed on a $100,000 bond and sent to Dorothy Dix Mental Hospital. And that's when I had my real faith kicked in while I was there. Uh, I was there for about three 3 weeks. I was supposed to be there for 6 weeks observation, but I think I stayed there 3 weeks. And and it was then that I realized, you know, man, what have you done? What have you done? But since then, I, I'm saying this now. At about my first book, I was talking about. Actually, I thought it was because of my compulsive gambling.
Mhm.
Okay, but what happened afterwards? I was out for some time. I called over to Gambling Anonymous, which is a town not too far from us, and told them that I had this experience and I'd like to come over and just talk with the guys because I thought I could really help them and share with them my situation, and maybe I could help them get to where they need to get. And the first question he asked me, he said, "Are you still a problem gambler?" I said no, and I was telling the truth.
Mhm.
When I was at the mental hospital, I said everything, anything that got me here, I'm finished with it.
Mhm.
Period. But no more. And that was the truth. No, no more. I was finished. Period. And when he asked me that, I told him no. He said, "Well, I don't know if the guys will be interested in hearing your story because we believe that once a compulsive gambler, always a compulsive gambler." I knew I wasn't a gambler anymore. I knew that was over. I didn't have no desire for it or nothing. So in my second book, I really started reflecting. I wrote another book that was Dear by Me, second edition, a self-evaluation that I published about I guess about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I really started reflecting on my whole life story. And I came to the realization that my problem was not that I was a compulsive gambler, but that I was afraid to fail.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay.
afraid to fail. And the reason I came to that conclusion is because man, I had been this outstanding lawyer. You know, everybody had looked up to me. I was this first first and only African American lawyer to practice in my hometown. I was the youngest African American lawyer practicing in the state of North Carolina at the time. I mean, I was on the move. Had run for district court judge. If the law had been like it is now in North Carolina, I would have been the first and only African district court judge in our district. I ran in 1976, and I got 47% of the vote. Okay, lost in the runoff. So I was well known in a five district. So I concluded that I was just afraid to fail. I saw myself going down. I didn't know how to accept it. And that's how I messed up. So, just to give you some feel as to what I was going through, I concluded that I think I was just afraid to fail. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I did something crazy.
Wow. Well, I guess this is a funny question. Did you get your 50 to $100,000 when you?
No, 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 no. Didn't get that. I didn't get that. And as a matter of fact, the story is so interesting because when I had stopped and actually threw the money out.
Really? Okay.
It was I think they said it was about $7,500, and and it was crazy talking because I had stopped beside the road. This is what I'll say, it was a long story because I had stopped beside the highway because I was just reflecting. My mind was just so messed up, and one of the uh, patrols came and pulled behind me, came up to the car and recognized who I was. And he said, asked me, was I all right? Because I was kind of slumped over. My mind was just gone. And he said, "Are you all right, lawyer?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, go ahead on." And I just started my car and pulled off. And I drove for about another mile and got stopped again because now I'm assuming that they know who it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I get stopped again, and the This time it was a state highway patrol, and I saw that he stayed in his car for a while. And I later realized why I think he stayed in the car because he was checking my tags.
Hmm.
And to be honest with you, things were going so bad for me at that point. You know, I had lost my I don't know what it was. I messed up my insurance or something. But anyway, my insurance was in my uncle-in-law's name. Okay, so when he was checking my tags, I'm thinking he was thinking that it was a stolen car or something. I don't
Gotcha.
know.
Yeah.
But he finally got out, started walking to the car, and by the time he got up to me, the previous police officer who knew me well uh, hollered at the one that said, "I just talked to him. He's okay." And he told me, "Okay, go ahead on." And I drove off
Wow.
twice, twice, and I went to my former partner's office. I was doing so bad at the time. We just decided to split. I didn't want to take him down with me. I was all messed up at the time,
Hmm.
and so I was at his office and he had gone to DC, and another lawyer, who's a friend of ours, was practicing down in Warrington. So I called him, and he came up to the office. And by the time he got there, a doctor friend of ours came over and talked with me. A former police officer came into his office driveway and asked if I was there. My lawyer went out and told me yes. And from then on, that was it. I was ready to turn myself in. They allowed me right over with my lawyer over to the adjoining county, and I was booked under that $100,000 bond. And of course, I later got out after the 3 weeks at the Miller Hospital, and they reduced my bond to $10,000. And of course, during that period, which was about, I guess, about 6 months before my case came up, I didn't have a job. When you start talking, I can tell you so much. I didn't have a job and didn't know what I was going to do. So my had a friend who had a service station, and he allowed me to come out. He said, "Well, I can't pay you much, but if you want to do something." So man, I went out and pumped gas, wash windshields. Former clients came by. I was pumping the gas for them. Friends. Stayed with him probably for about a month, and then they had a service, a grocery store, kind of like a food line, because food line
Hmm.
and Harris Teeter and all that was not around at the time. And so I talked with the owner, who was into politics, and he'd be well. I just told him, I said, "Look, I need a job. I don't have anything to do." I didn't know exactly when my case was going to come up. So he said, "Well, uh, uh, Lloyd, if you don't mind bagging groceries, I give you a job." Because I think he thought I wanted some in the office, like keeping the books or something like that. So
Hmm.
I said, "I don't care what it is, just give me some. I just want to make a little money." And so he told me, "Okay." So I went down there. I worked behind the cashier, bagging groceries. Former clients came in. It didn't matter. I was okay. I walked them to the car with their groceries, all of that. And I even talked about a area in my book where, you know, I felt like I was at one point on top of the world. You couldn't tell me anything. But when I had to do that, all of my pride and all that stuff just went away. And I got to be a total different person. But that helped me to get to where I needed to get.
So we got the identity that you're the gambler, and you end up going and you make a decision at the mental institution place. Now your identity changes to become the person that God wants you to be.
Mhm.
What talk about that transformation and talk about did God just say, hey, I made you for this purpose, I had to break you down, and here we are? Or is it people you were around? How did you get to where you are?
It's I think the process was all of that, really, to be honest with you. The people that I was around, because I mean, my mom has always been very committed. She's a committed, dedicated Christian. I mean, no question about it. Always took me to church, and even if I got grown, I made my own decisions, but I always made sure my mom went to church. Even if I didn't go, I would come back because he won't drive, and I'd come back. I'd be at a poker game and leave early that Sunday morning to make sure I got home to take my mom to church. That's just how close we were.
Okay.
And so they were always, and this happened to me. People were praying for me. They couldn't understand it. Part of what went on is that folks just couldn't understand what happened, and they were amazed, and everybody was praying for me. But the turning point was when I went to the mental hospital. I had the time. I had moments to reflect. It was nothing to do. I prayed, and my whole thought pattern changed. All the stuff that I had been doing, it just left me. I didn't want it anymore. I said, I'm finished with it. All I could do is just reflect on my life and how I got there. And somehow the Lord started working with me in the process of that time and the time that I was out on bond. And I felt the call, and I accepted it, and I preached, went to my pastor, and talked with him, because I really, to be honest with you, I really didn't want to do my initial sermon until I got out. I knew my life was changed. But it was always this thought that people were thinking that you're doing this because you're trying to get out of it. You don't want to get, a whole lot of time or what have you. That did not cross my mind. I didn't care about that. And I told my pastor, I said, look, I'd rather wait until I get out to do my initial sermon. I know I'm gonna be okay. I know where I'm going with my life, and I feel the call, and I know what I'm all about. And he told me, he said, well, if you feel that way, he said, I don't think you should wait. I think you should go out on and preach your initial sermon. And that night when I preached it, it was on a Sunday night, just before the Monday when I went to federal court and got sentenced to 15 years in prison. Arnold, I was fine. My mom broke down,
Mhm.
but I was fine. I was just waiting to get it all behind me. I was just where I was. No problem. It didn't worry me at all. I went through I went through the system with flying colors. That's really the truth. As a matter of fact, I've told my friends, and as a matter of fact, my former partner and my best friend, when this happened to me, we're still very good friends. As a matter of fact, I'm supposed to meet them at a restaurant tomorrow. We have lunch together. We're still
Mhm.
friends. And I told them, I say, one thing I honestly, and I do believe this, that my prison life added 5 years to my life.
Hmm.
But I think it took 5 years from my mom's life.
Wow. Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's just what I feel about it.
Mhm. Yeah.
I didn't. I mean, I exercise every day. I ate okay. I I didn't worry about nothing. That's just the way it was. I stayed out everybody's way. Everybody respected me. No problem, no incidents. I was great. After I was at in Ashland, Kentucky for the 4 years. The last year they transferred me to the camp in Petersburg. All I did was walk track, and when I was at Ashland, I played tennis every day. And during the wintertime, I was on the basketball court in the gym. Nobody said anything. I had a good time. I relaxed. I know when I tell people that, they say, you can't you can you really say that about being? I said, look, I had no problem. I really didn't. It added some time to my life.
Gotcha.
I'm
Well,
I'm 80 I'm 80 years old.
you're 80 now?
December,
Okay.
80 years old, December 25th.
Oh, well, Merry Christmas and happy birthday at the same day, huh? Oh my
That's
gosh,
right. That's
that
right.
is so
Yeah.
amazing. You know, one of the things that I can see a difference, you know, when you go there and you know that God's got a purpose for you, right? Because I
Hmm.
think you knew when you got out what you were going to do.
Oh yeah.
And you spent that time reflecting on that, and he obviously protected you, and you know, but you, because you didn't have a chip on your shoulder,
Mhm.
you knew that, hey, I'm serving the time for something I did, and we'll see what happens
That's right.
afterwards.
Mhm.
Do you think that's part of what helped you just, hey, nobody even messed, it doesn't sound like anybody messed with you, nobody, you weren't bitter, you weren't upset, you were just like, okay, let's serve it and let's get going.
That's exactly what I did. As a matter of fact, I told the judge that. I told him, I said, I plead guilty. I pled guilty. I wouldn't try to fight it. I said, I messed up. I said, I'm gonna get this behind me. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything else to say. I did it. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to fight it. And I've got to suffer the consequences. But I know that it's not me, and I know I'm gonna be okay.
Gotcha.
And I've been okay.
And you've been great, right? I mean,
No question. No, no question about it. And I tell my wife and I talk sometimes. I tell them about I have a lot of my law friends. We talk. They call me, and I tell them sometimes I be laughing. I say, now they got better jobs. They make more money than I make. But I tell her all the time, I guarantee none of them are as happy as I am.
oh my gosh.
None of
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine what your life would have been like as an attorney compared to
them.
what it was like
Oh
as a
yeah. Oh yeah.
pastor.
Mhm.
Um, your experiences that you had, how did that help you serve others as a pastor that maybe that you believe other pastors don't get to have or don't get to do, you know, through that process?
I think it really helps because I don't mind sharing my testimony.
Hmm.
I don't mind sharing what I've gone through, and I've learned that uh, people really appreciate that
Yeah.
because it helps them to see, uh, my pastor went through this, but look where he is now. So if he can do that and get to where he is, the little stuff that I'm doing, I know I can get through it. Okay. So I think they can identify with that. I had to preach yesterday, Monday, to the Interdenomination Ministerial Alliance. They wanted me to do the Christmas message. And I ended up, because everybody's read my books. You understand what I'm saying? So and all my whole life stories in my books. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have anything to hide.
Mhm.
So my minister friends tell me, they say, I've learned one thing from you, and that is it's always best to put your story out there rather than other folks put it out there.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, you do.
so yeah. So when I tell it, you know, they don't have anything to look forward to. Even when they when they interviewed me for my church that I retired from after 32 years, I didn't hold anything back.
Hmm.
Because my point was sooner or later you're gonna hear about it. Somebody gonna tell you about it. So look, I'm gonna put it on the line to you right now. This is what I did. My life is not that way now. I'm a totally different person. And if you will give me the opportunity, I promise that you will see that in me. And that's what I did.
Did you have a family during that time, like kids or
No,
anything? Or was
no, no, no children at all.
okay,
No children at all. Yeah.
so
And that may and I tell people that may have made a difference in my life. Because see,
mhm.
I was just freewheeling. I didn't have no responsibility. I was making good money. I just thought I could do whatever I wanted to do. It was just, I mean, I was just, woo. I told him yesterday, I I preached from Luke, second chapter, because it was a Christmas message. And
Mhm.
when They had no room in the inn, and we had to go to the outside stable. And I said, "No room, make room." And I talked about how we don't have room, and I said because I didn't have room. I said my house was filled with too much gambling, too much alcohol, you know, too much lying, too much cheating, all that. And I had to evict all of that stuff and make room for him. Okay.
Mhm.
And once I did that, life was totally different.
Yeah.
And I even shared that yesterday. So,
Oh, it is.
that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Help me define success, because I have many black men that come on and they believe success is those cars that you drive and the material things or the fame that somebody has and how well known they are. Uh, what is true success in this life?
Well, I don't want to give to anybody the impression that um, you that it's just about being happy, because if you're successful and you have all those things and you use them in the right way,
Hmm.
you can still be happy. You
Oh
can
yeah.
have your Mercedes, you can have all the other stuff, uh, but if like I told my wife, if I had million plus dollars, I can still be happy with my mindset now. You understand what I'm trying to say? Because,
Hmm.
I'll be
Yeah,
about
of course.
helping
Yeah.
people. Yeah, I'll be about helping folks. I'll be about doing that, doing this, and I will still get my joy. So I don't try to relate it to money. I just say, look, you know, it's about being content. You can be successful if you feel content, you're happy, you got a good marriage, family is good, and you basically, I still do basically what I want to do. I don't, I tell my former partner, I said, man, I don't have the money you have, but I tell you one thing, I bet you I'm just happy as you are. We just laugh and have fun. But but that's that's what I see as success. Success is not necessarily having the most beautiful home, most latest car, Mercedes, Jaguar, and all that stuff. And I've had those. I've had those. That's when I know that
Hmm.
that's not. It's not all about that.
Yeah.
Uh, so you just gotta learn to be content. As scriptures say, I've learned that in whatever situation I am, therewith to be content. I took three Bible verses with me all the way through uh, prison,
Okay.
and they came from Philippians.
All three.
All three.
Okay.
Well, so I can do all things through Christ who strengthens
Okay.
me.
Gotcha.
Okay, my God should supply all my needs according to His riches and glories. And that I speak not in respect of want, for I've learned that in whatever situation I am, there will to be content. I carried those three verses with me all the way through.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, amazing. Yeah, as I think about success, and when you say happiness, I believe if I have a choice, would I rather be happy without money or happy with money? I think I'll choose money all the time. Not that money is what creates happiness, but it gives you options to be able to serve in ways that you can't without it, right?
Yeah, and I tell people that. I don't deny that. I if somebody's trying to tell me that well, I don't want all this money, I'm not about all that. I said okay, if that's you, okay. But I love to have more money than I've got, you know, because my mindset now is to allow that to help somebody else, and also to help me fulfill some
Amen.
of the dreams that I love to fulfill. And that's part of what I think life is all about. So I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I'm not going to let you get out of here without talking about health. both physical health and mental health. That the average Black man lives to 72 here in America. You're 80,
Hmm.
so you beat those odds, and
Hmm.
you're doing really well. You got another 20, 30 years in you. So,
You got that
what is
right.
your secret? What is your secret? What have you done? Because you've gone through some hard times. I mean,
Hmm.
a lot of people, like you said, when you said I added 5 years to my life,
Hmm.
in a lot of cases, it subtracts more than that, more than 5, 10, 15
Hmm.
years of their life
Hmm.
because of the stress and whatever else. So,
Hmm.
talk to us. And then we talk about the mental health side of it. You spent time, even in a facility to have to deal with your mental health.
Hmm.
So talk to us about what it takes to have this healthy life that 80 years old and thriving.
Well, it takes part of what I just said,
Mhm.
learning to be content.
Okay.
See, when you get beyond that, then you started becoming not satisfied with stuff. You feel like you got to have this, you got to have that, and that brings on stress.
Hmm.
So when you can be content with whatever situation you have, then you don't necessarily worry about all the other stuff. And it just kind of, and when you know anything, it really starts falling in place. I'm going to give you a story just by just with my podcast. Just that has just been within the last month. I because I was I my home church called me to serve as their interim pastor. Been there 15 months. I told my wife, I said, I don't know what I want to continue to do all of both of these.
Hmm.
I said, so I might just stop doing the podcast for a while. And just as I said that, I got this publishing company out of California who had been listening to some of my podcasts, and they contacted me about engaging me to interview their authors because they wanted to do the promotion, and they're using my interview with them to promote them. Just within the last month, I got that, and because I was, I just, you know, I, I wasn't I didn't even think about it. I didn't know where this was coming from. And so and they're paying me additional money just to do that. And they're guaranteeing me doing at least 4 or 5 a month. And I've done 2 today. So you understand what I'm saying? So that's just you got to just say, look, I'm gonna sell it. Yeah, I'm not gonna let all this stuff worry me. I'm just gonna take it as it comes, relax,
Hmm.
and enjoy life.
And do you think part of the health is just is keeping busy, keeping doing stuff? I mean, so many people, you say I'm retired, and your wife is retired,
Mhm.
and they sit and they watch shows or they watch TV or they something. Well, you got stuff going. I mean, you're preaching.
Mhm.
I don't know how many 80-year-old preachers go for 15 months. I hope you're having a lot of guests coming in and talking too. But so you're preaching, you're doing a podcast, you know, you're eating healthy. I don't know, you're exercising too. I mean,
Mhm.
how do you do it? Is that part of what keeps you alive?
Oh yeah, yeah. I one of the things both of us talk about is kind of staying busy. My wife is a little different from I am than me. You know what I'm doing this, she could care less about this. Okay, she likes
Mhm.
being in the yard. She'll stay out in the yard, working in the yard, working with flowers, reading books, that kind of stuff all the time. So that's how she
Mhm.
stays busy. And we'll ride out at least about once or twice a week. Go out to breakfast, go out to lunch, do dinner, this type of stuff, and just talk. So, and she likes to do that. She tells me, I don't care where we're going. I just want to ride. So we'll do that. But but I'm one who is going to be working on my podcast. I'm gonna and I'm thinking about writing another book. I haven't got to that point yet, but and I'll sit down and I'll work out something, start working on my message for the Sunday, this type of stuff. What meetings do I have? Who I need to talk to, who I need to visit at the hospital, or who I need to call. So these type things are running through my mind. So can I just stay busy doing it? And I love doing it. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, well, James, it has been phenomenal having you on here. I want you to, whatever you wanted to talk about on this podcast that I didn't let you talk about, well, go ahead and take some time. Please tell us about your books or where to get a hold of you, all those wonderful things, because I know I have grown from this. When I think of mentors and I think of people in my life that are associations that you want to have so that you can move forward. I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room because I know that I'm in the wrong room, but I want to be around people like yourself that can uplift me, that can help me grow, that can help me move. You would be, like my content mentor. Like, how do you go through whatever you're going through and you can stay content, you can stay happy, you can stay healthy? It's just amazing. So please share with us, all those things that I didn't get to ask you.
Well, let me say this to you. There are some things that I have always said I learned from my experiences, and I want to share those with you.
Okay.
And I may not share them all, but these are some of them. You only have one shot, so don't miss it.
Okay.
The darkest hour is just before dawn. Always confront the source. An idle mind is a devil's workshop. Play with fire and you will get burned. Practice humility. Accept responsibility. Know that crime does not pay. If something is consuming you, step back from it. Don't let your circumstance be an excuse. There is some good in every situation. And last, don't be afraid to fail.
I love that one. Don't be afraid to fail. I like the humility one too. There's so many people tell me I'm humble, but no, practice it. Practice it. Oh my gosh. I was trying to write them down, and then it dawned on me, you know what? I'm recording this. I can go back and I can stop and I can write it down, pause, write it down. What am I trying to do racing to that? So those of you who are watching, if you didn't get those, hit the rewind button and you can go back and watch all those because they're so profound. And I just thought you just gave me 10 short videos to be able to do to talk about on my Brian's Mindset Daily that I do.
Thank you,
because
man.
all 10 of those are so profound. All 10 of those, if you could live your life by all 10 of those on a daily basis, you would have that happiness that you have. You would
Yep.
have that thought process that allows you to succeed and not to be that person. So thank you for those. It's been not only encouraging, you have inspired me. I am ready to transform myself. I know when we started, you said, how long are we going to talk? I said about an hour. You said, why don't we make it 45 minutes? But you're so good. So we've been talking about an hour. So I apologize if I took some time away from something you're doing, but I think this is just so important. And, I know these listeners, this will go beyond us. This will go beyond when we're both on this here planet doing stuff. And so we get to record it and save it. And so
tell your listeners that they can get my book, Deal
Okay.
by Me. Both of them. The Deal by Me second edition is on Amazon, but you can still order the first one that I wrote on Amazon also. And all of them will be on Amazon. Just type in Deal by Me by James W. Smith and you will get them.
Gotcha. Do you have a website that folks can go to as well?
And I had one, but I just let it go because I wasn't getting that much traction with my website. So our website was entitled was named Deal by Me. Also, I had it for years, and you'd be surprised. I just let it go when I told my wife I thought I was going to just stop doing.
Gotcha. Well, how do they get to your podcast then? How does people watch your podcast?
They can watch it on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, you name it.
Okay. What's the name of it?
Deal by Me Podcast.
Deal by Me Podcast. So if you can remember Deal by Me, you are going to find Mr. James W. Smith. And the book is Deal by Me. There is 2 editions to Deal by Me. And if you've been inspired by this story, which I know I have, please go ahead and pick up the book, get the book, watch the podcast, and you will be just not only entertained, you will be informed, and you will be able to take what we've talked about today and enhance your life. And so, James, thank you for being on today. Thank you for being part of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And your journey has been exceptional. And I appreciate you sharing who you are and the things that you've done. Hey, don't forget, you guys, you are God's greatest gift, and he loves you if you allow him to. And we will live to talk to you another time. So we'll see you on the next one. You guys have an amazing, awesome, just incredible day today.